Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Incorporated, Season 1, Episode 1. It is the pilot, but it's actually got a title this time, unlike some other shows. It's called Vertical Mobility. We'll start off spoiler free, because it is a first episode. This is the new show that's on SyFy, which is not actually starting for another couple of weeks. They streamed it early on Facebook, and I believe they even have it up on their YouTube page right now. So this is the show that comes from Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They're producing this. And Ben Affleck apparently has an ego enough that he named one of the main characters after himself.
Hey, look, to be fair, if you're going to make your own show, I feel like you probably should name some characters after yourself every so often.
Yeah,
Why the hell not?
I'm just waiting for a Matt to pop up now. That's all I'm saying. There's going to be a Matt at some point. But this
I feel like what happened there, though, is Ben has greater control and he's just shafted Matt. It's like, nah, I'm having a name, not you.
Until we find out like the main villain or something's called Matt.
Yeah, that'll be good.
But no, so this is a set in the future. It is a dystopian style, slightly cyberpunk show. It's set in 2074, so it's in the future, and climate change has basically messed up the world. Resources are at an all-time low. Global corporations control most of the planet, and if you work for them, you get to live the high life in what's called the green zone, and if you don't work for them, you live in the slums, which is, I imagine, a good like 80% of the planet.
Yeah, I mean, because just you see how tight this green zone is.
Yeah.
Like how narrow and like the percentages of what this is actually really small.
Yeah, when they're driving from like the residential area to the city where they work, like the road that it's in is like the only part of the green zone. Like you see literally outside of this barrier on the sides of this road are like just these slums and like
Yeah.
Almost apocalyptic looking like landscapes.
It is clear like the bare minimum that they needed to make this work.
Yeah, so that's kind of the setup, and it's funny because obviously the main character works for the company, and he has a backstory that we sort of like hint at throughout the first episode, and he in some way, and I don't want to get into spoilers yet, we'll save it for when we're actually talking spoilers, but he is ultimately going to be working against them. He's going to be on the inside trying to do things that he's not supposed to be doing. So he's constantly going to be in a case of like trying not to get caught doing things. So it's going to be that kind of show where he's doing like espionage style little things and all that kind of thing. It does obviously remind me a lot of other things because there was certainly the clean feel of it really reminded me of Gattaca.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there was a lot of Gattaca in there. The way these powerful corporations control the main areas and the rest of it's all slums is a little bit Hunger Games. There's no actual Hunger Games, of course, but
yeah, no, it's the same idea of districts versus the rest.
Yeah, and so you've got all that going on. Maybe a slight tinge of like Blade Runner as well, just in the sense you've got these powerful corporations. So the main character is Ben. His job, he's like a tech designer, tech sort of engineer. He helps them build either weapons or other aids for the military. The main thing we see them designing in this episode is kind of like a mind-reading technology where it shows images of what they're thinking.
Yeah. I feel like they also mentioned using it for like marketing and stuff, didn't they not?
They probably did, but one of the other main things they showed was like a gun type thing, so...
Yeah. Well, I think the point is that these companies, there's only like a few of these corporations. They're that large. There's only like a few of them left because they've absorbed everything. They're massively diverse. They do everything at this point.
I imagine they do everything, and it even says that they engage in like quiet warfare between each other. Like the companies are all against each other.
Yeah, this isn't spoilers. This is literally the first thing you see.
Yeah, this is the text.
A block of text to read explaining everything.
But I don't know what it is about sci-fi shows and movies, but for some reason, if you give me like text coming up explaining what year it is with some piano music behind of it, that's kind of mysterious. I'm just like, I'm already into it.
See, that's the thing. I agree with that, but I don't feel like a lot of this text was necessary. I feel like it was fine, but I feel like the episode did a good enough job of telling me everything I needed to know without this text.
Do you know, it's funny. I kind of agree with that, actually. I never really thought about it, but now that you've said it, I think, you do get most of it from just the episode.
It almost feels a little bit redundant. I mean, I get like why you start with it, and it feels like, oh, hang on, this is a lot of information to dump. But
That said, though, I don't think it's a bad idea. Like, we spoke about good behaviour this week, and we were talking about how there were certain scenes that felt redundant and unnecessary. While I agree that this information is all reinforced heavily throughout the episode, because it is like a futuristic world, and because we have all these new rules, I'm kind of okay with them just...
yeah, you kind of give them a pass a bit. But at the same time, I feel like it almost would have been a bolder choice just to go in, drop us in fresh, and let us find out this through the episode.
Do I think if the rest of the episode wasn't as impressive, I might have more of a problem with it, but because, for the most part, it feels like a very slick show. It feels much like Channel Zero did. It feels like it's above and beyond what SyFy usually put out, which really, to me, says that SyFy are really trying to make a play in this original content game. Even the fact that they have a thing saying SyFy original series at the start now. Like, they never used to have that. That's like a new thing in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Where they're really trying to promote themselves as a maker of these high quality shows. So it feels like they're upping their game, and for the most part I thought this looked great. I thought, the shots of the city looked great. I thought most of the simple visual effects of all their windows and mirrors are also screens, and the news is playing in the mirrors. He's just brushing his teeth in the morning, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the design in general was fantastic. Yeah. Like I say, it's all very clean, sleek, Gattaca-esque, but it looks great. Well,
that's kind of the point, isn't it? Is that when they're in the company, everyone's just in an identical office and everything looks the same. It's this whole, you're not a person, you're part of this corporate monster,
Yeah.
There's no individuality. Whereas when they go out into the green zone,
Red zone.
So the red zone, yeah. I'm going to keep mixing up these zones, guys. I'm sorry. But when they go out into the red zone, and it's basically like the Wild West, and they go into what looks like a sort of illegal version of Las Vegas, where there's neon signs with advertising prostitutes and all that, and it's the Wild West,
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, so, but, and as much as it's much more dangerous out there, which is equally bad, the personalities there, it's they're both missing something. The corporate world's safe, but you're just a cog. You're nothing. There's no expression. To the point where, there's a scene in this first episode where Ben and his boss are looking at a painting. His motivation as the painter is that he is poor and he never sold a painting, and it's the depression and the poverty that gave him the motivation to do this. Had he had the choice, would he have, sold some paintings, being a much happier man, but being much less of an artist? That idea, which one do you choose? And it's a very on the nose kind of comparison, because that's really what this show is. You have no expression with comfort and money, and then you have Wild West where there's no safety and no comfort, but
you have freedom.
Yeah, there's freedom. So it's that dichotomy. That's what the whole show is really about. I thought it was a strong first episode.
I agree. I thought it was very good, actually. And like I say, SyFy really up in their game, because you asked me a couple of years ago, would I expect two good shows from SyFy back to back like this? I'd have said probably not.
I wouldn't have thought so, no.
I'd have put money against it.
Yeah, but I thought the cast were mostly pretty good. Not a whole lot of weak links there. It looked great, fairly well directed. I thought there was some strong moments. There's one moment in particular where someone's got the classic progress bars going up as they're trying to sneak something in, in an office, and which is a bit tropey, but you know what? I will accept this, because at least this is the transferring of data which actually has this progress bar. We all experience this. Whenever you copy something from a hard drive to another hard drive, you're familiar with this process. It takes time. You have a percentage bar going up, as opposed to some sort of made-up thing where it doesn't actually take any time.
Yeah, it feels real in this unreal world. Yeah. It helps ground it.
Yeah, agree with that. And there's a lot of other elements, of course, that are different because it's the future. You need to have a permit before you can have a child, is one of the things that comes up. Yeah. And other various things in that. So, yeah, so that's I think the spoiler-free sort of...
Just say, I thought the music was really great.
The music was generally pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, it was really solid, and again, above what I expected going in.
So, yeah, I think we'll go into spoilers now. So, full spoilers for episode 1 of Incorporated from this point on. So, Ben used to be in the red zone.
Yes.
and he has somehow infiltrated. One of his contacts, in fact, is the guy who played Buddy on Quarry, which is funny because we saw the guy who played Felix on Quarry in another show this week. So it's kind of funny how those actors are popping up in other things now. Now that I know their faces.
We're just gonna see him everywhere now.
Yeah, but yeah, so he's trying to. We sort of learn more throughout the episode as to what he's actually trying to do. He's looking for a woman, despite the fact that he's happily married, seemingly, you know. And he actually does seem to care about his wife. You know, there's that moment with Theo when Theo almost says something bad about her, and Ben/Aaron, because we find out he used to be called Aaron. Like, Ben's his alias for the real. By the way, starting a new show, try to learn about 15 new names, and one of the characters has 2 names. Does not help. I'm just saying.
It really doesn't.
It does not help. But yeah, so he's looking for this woman because we see him sort of like going to like phantom mode, which is the first sort of sign that he's doing something that he's not meant to be.
Yeah.
Up until this point, it's just been, he's going about his business, he's doing what he's supposed to do. There's this kind of uneasiness because just the general feeling of the world is uneasy. Like, you always have to, do good for the company, you have to impress them, you have to prove your worth. Whereas this was the first sign of, no, he's actually doing something that,
Yeah, and obviously we had the scenes of, when he was going into work after because we heard about the bombing. And he mentions how security is going to be so tight, and you can see him react to it. Yeah. But at the time, we just think, oh, great, he's got to go through extra security. No one wants to deal with that hassle. No.
Which, by the way, apparently, because natural food is a lot more rare. Like, there's a point early on where the wife says, oh, real bacon?
Yeah.
And he says, oh, we can only have it this once. We can't afford to keep having real bacon. It's an expensive commodity now. And so food porn is a thing that exists in this world, because the guy who gets caught at the security is caught because he has food porn on his computer device.
That cracked me up because it just plays and you just hear it first, and it just sounds like regular porn.
Yeah, because it sounds like, oh, put it in my mouth, baby, put it in my mouth, and then it cuts to it, and she's like got food and she's like pouring it in her mouth. Oh dear, yeah.
Oh man, that cracked me up.
Yeah, and a show that wasn't very funny, that was a pretty funny moment.
Yeah, and it was well done because it worked in context of everything that was going on as well.
Yeah. So he's doing all this stuff, and it's to find this woman that he knew outside, that he knew in the red zone, and he seems to have traced her with a 74% possibility or probability that she's a part of this escort service at this prestigious club that only the senior executives who are on floor 40 and above in this company get to go. The company, by the way, is called Segra, just because we'll probably reference that at some point later. And so we see that, but we also see him go out to the red zone with his work buddies after work, because I think the whole idea is that even these rich people go out there to unload, get drugs and go to crazy places, even though it's unsafe.
Experience a bit of a thrill that's not just this corporate cleanliness.
Although Ben's wife Laura does not want to go back out there.
Oh no, it's not even just out there, it's this specific place.
Yeah, because he mentions where they're going, and she immediately starts having these it's almost like Vietnam flashbacks where she's remembering being tortured.
Yeah.
And we only see quick glimpses of it, so we can't really tell. But we hear a little bit later on from her mother that her mother, by the way, who is the head of the company.
Yeah.
Very important point.
It is. It is actually essential.
It is very essential. But she mentions that she got a body part sent in the mail at once, and we see that Laura actually works at a place that rebuilds people's faces and adds body parts back on, and one of the customers we see that she has is a woman who's got this new poor boy. She's older, she's in her 60s or whatever, and she's got this young kid from the red zone, and she's going to give him a better life, but the catch is that he has to get his face turned into her dead husband's face, from when he was a young man. So there's a lot of world building in this. We get a sense of all these different elements of people can have body parts put back on, or even just recreated. They can just grow an ear back onto you. So violence doesn't have the same sort of lasting effect, in terms of threat. But the experience itself is still clearly traumatic because Laura is still oh God, no, I'm not going back there.
But it's not like you're going to be physically scarred for life. I mean, we even see, because she cuts herself after this.
Yeah.
And she just puts a spray on and 10, 15 seconds later wipes it off, all healed up. So, medical tech is way on point in the future.
for the rich. It wouldn't surprise me if at one point we see someone on the outside get injured, and it's a much more of an issue. It's like, oh, what do we do? Like, we don't have,
No, that would make sense.
you know. And the main character we sort of meet on the outside is named Theo, who it turns out knows Ben and knows him as Aaron. These were people who knew each other, and he also turns out to be the brother of Elena, who's the woman that Ben is trying to find.
Yes.
So their ultimate goal is to find her and get her back, to save her, whatever. But this has been a long time coming. It's been 6 years since she went away, and we know that Ben's been married for 3. And there was a little promo at the end of the episode that showed you like a sort of season ad, and it did appear that we're going to get flashbacks to like how he became like Ben and how he, integrated himself into the corporate world and into the Green Zone. So I'm sure that'll be a kind of interesting story, which is probably more than anything else what makes me think of Gattaca, because a lot of that is about,
infiltration,
infiltrating into the company to get what you need.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But so the gist of the plot of this one, really, though, and there's a lot to describe here. I'm talking about so much about different plot elements, but they go out to the Red Zone, and the reason why they go out there is because Ben needs his superior's blood, because he frames his superior so that a position, because he's a senior executive, and by framing him in connection with this terrorist attack that's happened at one of their facilities in another country, will open up this spot on the 40th floor, which will get him access to the same exclusive club that only the senior executives get to go to, so that he can maybe find Elena and get her back. So, like I say, a lot of moving parts here. I feel like I'm describing so many plot elements, probably because it's the first episode, probably because it's a completely new sci-fi world with so many new rules and, infrastructure.
I feel like at this point we have to give the show its credit, because we're saying all this and it sounds confusing and complex, but when you're watching the show, it doesn't feel at all. It's really straightforward presented. Never feels confusing.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a sign of good storytelling, and I mean, ultimately, the sign of a good director more than anything else is how to get across information in the most succinct way possible. That's not confusing, makes sense, and the audience gets it. And it's funny because the way you said that there, it's kind of almost like I always love bringing that up with Lost. Like, if you describe the entire plot of Lost, like all 6 seasons of Lost to someone in like 5 minutes, it sounds like the most insane, ridiculous, batshit crazy thing you've ever heard. But when you were watching it week to week, it made complete sense.
Yeah.
So, no, you're right there. So he steals some of his blood. We see him go meet Theo, and other little things that I liked. None of the elevators working out in the Red Zone. So there's a guy on a motorbike who you pay to take you up the stairs on the motorbike.
I thought that was fantastic.
That was a nice touch. It was a nice touch. And speaking of Theo, he is now working for this sort of crime boss, because out in the Red Zone, it's all crime bosses and stuff like that. There's no proper,
and
police force.
It's kind of Ben's fault that he is working for him.
Yeah. He get caught with stuff that he couldn't possibly have, and as a result, he was almost going to get in trouble. But when he realised that Theo could fight, the mob boss decided that he would put him on the payroll, and I'm sure that'll be an ongoing plot on the outside. It's funny, actually, because I was surprised when they ran into each other, because I almost thought we're going to follow their plots all season until they intersect, maybe halfway or something like that. But
they just know each other, so it's cool.
Yeah, they just know each other, and we'll get how this all started and flashbacks and stuff. So that's pretty cool. But no, so like I say, the whole thing where he was in the office and he's like transferring the data, he's using this this gun that makes you feel sick, that makes you feel nausea.
Yeah, when you hear it, and obviously he has these earplugs in. Yeah,
so he's making the hangover of his boss that he took out worse, so that he'll leave the office and go, puke in the bathroom, so he can use his DNA that he already stole to get into his computer and get information and frame him. But
then his earplugs break or stop, so they stop working.
Yeah,
and it starts affecting him, and obviously he has to turn it off. And then it's the race of how long can he stand these uncomfortable effects and trade it off to the amount of progress it's transferred. Yeah,
it's a very tropey scene, even the way that you think he's about to get caught, but he opens the door and he's already sit back over in his seat. Yeah. It's a bit tropey, but it's effective, and it was
It is, like I say, it is trope, but it's well done, so I don't mind.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff like that, and it ends, of course, with him being caught at the security point, which again they played it really in a really nice way from a directing point of view, where you just see Ben go to the security checkpoint, the alarms go off, but then when the security guards run past them, the camera then comes back and we see that his boss is standing at the other one on the other side, and he's the one getting caught, and he gets carted off, and he's the one that gets taken to the quiet room, which is this mysterious place where they keep saying they've heard stories of how bad it is. We have not yet seen how bad it is. We don't know how. All we know
we
is,
haven't heard any of these stories.
we just know that Julian, who is the sort of the head of the security slash sort of interrogation, like he's also investigating this terrorist attack as well as sort of securing this place itself.
I think it's more because this building seems to be like the company headquarters, like their actual headquarters. So I think he's like head of security for the entire company, which is why he's also dealing with the terrorists.
Which is essentially, in this context, the head of the military, because the corporation is effectively...
Yeah, he's essentially like a general or something.
Yeah. So that's Julian, who's played by Dennis Haysbert, who was the president on the first several seasons of 24, which people all know his face from that. Nice to see him again. He's very intimidating. He comes in, he whispers in the guy's ear at the end, all those stories you've heard are true. Yeah. So I don't know if that means we'll actually see him be tortured next week or whatever else, but...
I feel like it's almost more effective if they don't, and even if don't even tell us these stories, just let us imagine how awful it could be.
Well, I think obviously eventually we're going to see them, but not yet. Yeah, and if I was to guess, I would say it won't be conventional torture. It'll be more Clockwork Orange style, like eyes wide open and watching stuff and being brainwashed or something like.
Yeah.
It'll be torture pipelined into your head. And you feel like you're experiencing it, but you're not. No one's actually physically snapping fingers or whatever.
Unlike, they don't want to show.
Yeah, unlike the Red Zone, where someone almost does get their finger cut off.
It's lovely.
Yeah, but again, showing the contrast. Maybe if they do go that route, it would show the contrast again between them.
Yeah, definitely. It's gone.
I was going to say, and how neither one's perfect. Like, there needs to be a balance in between the two.
Yeah, there's clearly what the end game for the show is, right? Like, show that there needs to be a balance. And that's fine. It's got to have a driving purpose.
Also, I love that Canada's apparently better off because Americans are illegally immigrating into Canada. Or I should say emigrating, because we're starting with America.
That's not the difference.
No. If you're emigrating to a country from a country, you're emigrating. But you're an immigrant to Canada.
Yeah.
I started with America, and so I should have said emigrate instead of immigrate.
Yeah, I see that.
Canada's putting up an electric fence to stop people from getting in.
I want to know why, because obviously these companies are global. Is it one of them has America and one of them has Canada and one of them is a better company?
Or maybe Canada is just sort of neutral from all this. They're just running this business as normal. The rest of the planet's all messed up.
That's actually something I considered, because the text at the start tells us that these corporations run the world. These three. Yet Canada still has a government. Yeah. And I mean, America does, but it seems very clearly like they're in the company's pockets.
Yeah, but there's a senator, so there is at least some kind of thing there. But it's not, because at one point, Elizabeth Cross, who's the boss, is talking to this senator guy, and she's kind of bossing him around. She's like the one giving him orders, which is again showing.
I mean, it feels like they're the ones with the power still, whereas Canada have their prime minister or and said things. So I mean, it feels like maybe they actually have some power up there.
Yeah,
be interesting to see more of that. Actually,
I think we will. I think we'll get more of all this stuff because they did a whole lot of world building. So we basically ended on like a montage of the boss announcing there's a position open and how they're going to be very vigorous in testing to make sure another traitor doesn't get in. Which, wink wink, we know that the main character who is trying to get in is technically also a traitor, so that'll be fun to.
Yeah, and he got that warning near the start of, the higher you advance, the more likely that you'll be found out. So obviously that's the trade-off he's got to go through.
Yeah, so I foresee lots of tense, almost getting caught style moments throughout the show.
This feels very much like it's going to play like an espionage thriller, just in a sci-fi world.
Which is cool.
And yeah, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything like this on right now. So, yeah, by all means, give us this. This is something different.
Yeah, definitely.
So no, so this is looking good. We'll definitely be covering episode 2. Although, of course, episode 2 won't be for another 3 weeks. So
Yeah, it'll be sometime in
early
December. Yeah.
Early December, because this episode will air on SyFy on the 30th of November. So it'll be the following week where we're back with episode 2. So, but thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you thought of this episode if you've watched the early preview of it. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We will see you next time.